Airports are strange places. On the surface, they are filled with nothing more than the ordinary sounds of travel. The rolling wheels of suitcases, the muffled announcements echoing overhead, the impatient sighs of passengers waiting for boarding. To the untrained eye, it is all routine, a rhythm repeated countless times every single day. Yet beneath this surface lies something far more profound. Every traveler carries with them a private world, unseen burdens, and hidden stories. What looks like monotony is in truth a tapestry of lives in motion, colliding briefly in the same space before scattering again. The illusion of ordinary is powerful. We are trained to believe that routine means safety, that the predictable flow of events assures us nothing will change. But life has always thrived on shattering illusions. An airport is the perfect disguise. It lulls us into believing we are simply moving from one place to another. We never stop to wonder what could unfold between departure and arrival. We never imagine that destiny may wait at 30,000 feet, disguised as an unexpected announcement. The ordinary blinds us until the extraordinary forces us to see. In moments of routine, people let their guard down. They become absorbed in their screens, distracted by snacks, or lulled to sleep by the steady hum of engines. It is in this state of complacency that vulnerability hides. A child presses their face against the window with joy. A business traveler races against a deadline, and a wary passenger closes her eyes, all believing this flight is nothing more than transportation. They don't realize that beneath the calm, pressure can build in silence, waiting for a crack to appear. Ordinary moments are fragile, and it takes only a single fracture to break the illusion. But this illusion is not just about airports or airplanes. It reflects the way we live. How often do we mistake silence for peace or routine for security? We convince ourselves that nothing will change, that tomorrow will look like today, until the unexpected crashes into our lives. A single phone call, a single decision, a single voice over the intercom, and suddenly everything we thought was stable proves to be nothing more than a thin curtain hiding reality. Ordinary is never guaranteed. It is always temporary, always vulnerable to disruption. The illusion of ordinary teaches us a powerful truth, that beneath the everyday lies the possibility of transformation. What seems routine can shift into crisis without warning, but it can also reveal hidden strength and unexpected courage. Claire Donovan, like many others, walked into that airport believing she was just another traveler. Yet destiny had written something else for her. The ordinary was an illusion, and when it shattered, the extraordinary demanded she step forward. Life is never as routine as it seems, and sometimes, the moment we least expect becomes the moment we were made for. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who never announce their strength. They move through the world quietly, carrying themselves with humility, blending into the rhythm of ordinary life. Claire Donovan was one of those people. To the passengers around her, she was only another wary traveler. A woman in a gray hoodie, sitting quietly in row 12. Nothing about her appearance suggested she carried within her a history of courage, precision, and sacrifice. And yet, hidden beneath her calm exterior, was a weight of experience that few could ever imagine. This is the paradox of true strength. It rarely looks dramatic. It doesn't need to. Claire had spent years in the cockpit, living through storms and silence, moments where every second demanded flawless decision-making. She had guided missions at altitudes where a single mistake meant disaster, flown through nights where her only companions were the stars and the chatter of radios, and faced challenges that pushed her beyond ordinary limits. These hours of training and survival became etched into her bones, creating a discipline that no one in row 12 could see. Most people underestimate the quiet ones. They look at appearances and assume they understand a person's worth. But hidden experience cannot always be measured by the way someone dresses, by the kind of bag they carry, or by the tired expression on their face. Claire's sneakers may have been worn, her hoodie plain, her presence unremarkable. Yet within her lived thousands of hours of training, scars from battles fought in silence, and a resilience shaped by adversity. The weight of hidden experience is invisible to the casual eye, but it is undeniable when called into action. And life has a way of demanding that hidden experience be revealed at the most unexpected moments. A quiet passenger can become the leader in a crisis. A tired traveler can be the one to stand when no one else can. Claire knew this truth well. She had lived it before, in skies far more dangerous than this one. Even though she longed to remain anonymous on this flight, she also knew that her experience was not just a memory. It was a responsibility, carried with her whether she wanted it or not. The lesson is simple, but profound. Never assume you know the strength of the person sitting beside you. The world is full of hidden stories, hidden battles, and hidden victories. Claire's presence on that plane was no accident. Her quiet strength, her unseen history, her weight of hidden experience. All of it had prepared her for the moment when routine would shatter and courage would be demanded. True experience does not need recognition. It waits patiently until the world needs it most. Life often moves in silence until a single moment shatters it. For the passengers of Flight 482, that moment came when the captain's voice broke through the cabin with words no one expected. There is a licensed pilot on board. Please make yourself known. In an instant, the illusion of safety cracked. Books were lowered, conversations froze, earbuds slipped out. The hum of ordinary travel gave way to the heavy weight of uncertainty. Everyone understood. Something was wrong. And in that suspended silence, lives hung waiting for an answer. Calls like this are never routine. They are the crossroads where fate demands someone step forward. Most people will sit frozen, hoping someone else will rise. Someone else will carry the burden. Fear grips the ordinary traveler. But for a select few, such a call awakens something deeper. For Claire Donovan, that moment was a spark. She had wanted nothing more than to remain invisible, to cross the country as just another anonymous face. But destiny has a way of finding those who are prepared, even when they are trying to hide. The call for a pilot was more than a request. It was a summons. In those words, Claire heard the weight of responsibility pressing against her. She imagined the cockpit, the captain perhaps alone, overwhelmed, maybe even fighting to hold the plane steady. Hundreds of lives depended on whether or not someone in that cabin would stand up. Fear filled the air around her, but Claire felt something different, a quiet sharpening of instinct, a familiar clarity that years of training had carved into her. Every life has a defining moment when choice meets destiny. For some, it is the chance to defend, to lead, to sacrifice. For Claire, it came at 30,000 feet in the dim glow of a cabin filled with strangers. She could have stayed silent, hoping others might answer the call, but she knew deep down that silence would betray who she was. The call was not just about flying an aircraft, it was about courage. About stepping into the unknown when everyone else sat frozen in fear. The call that changes everything teaches us this truth. You may not choose the moment, but the moment will choose you. It will arrive without warning, disguised in ordinary places, demanding that you reveal who you truly are. Claire Donovan did not board that flight expecting to be more than a passenger. Yet destiny knocked on her seat in row 12. And when the world needed her, the weight of her silence ended, and her hidden strength began to speak. There are moments in life when silence feels like the safest option, when the weight of a situation tempts us to stay hidden, unnoticed, and untouched by the consequences of action. Claire, sitting quietly in row 12, could have chosen that path. She could have let her anonymity shield her, waiting for someone else to step forward, hoping that fate or luck would resolve the crisis. Yet, Silence in critical moments is not neutral. It is a choice with its own consequences, and in that silence grows the pressing question. What happens when no one else rises? Responsibility is rarely invited. It is thrust upon us in unexpected ways. For Claire, the moment the attendant's voice reached her row, silence was no longer simply avoidance. It was a decision that carried the weight of 200 lives. The call pierced through her attempts to remain unseen, awakening the truth drilled into her bones during years of service. When you are the one who can act, you don't wait for someone else. Her silence could have meant the continuation of fear, chaos, and uncertainty, but her voice carried something greater: direction, assurance, and action. In that moment, silence transformed from comfort into a burden she could no longer bear. Responsibility often demands sacrifice, the sacrifice of anonymity, of personal comfort, of the illusion that someone else will step up. Claire's nod, her quiet but firm declaration of who she was and what she could do, became the bridge between fear and hope. It marked the instant she accepted that the responsibility she had once carried in uniform had never truly left her. It lived beneath her silence, waiting for the call. The shift from silence to responsibility is not only about stepping forward, it is about recognizing that others are looking for courage in someone else's actions. Claire's decision to break her silence did more than put her in the cockpit. It steadied a cabin full of hearts beating with panic, restored balance to a captain on the verge of collapse, and reminded her of her own dormant strength. Her silence had once kept her hidden, but her responsibility made her visible in the most vital way. Ultimately, silence may protect us in ordinary life, but in extraordinary moments, it becomes a heavy chain. To answer responsibility is to break that chain, to step into risk with the knowledge that lives, hopes, and futures rest upon your choice. Claire's story shows us that responsibility is not an abstract burden. It is the very thing that transforms an ordinary individual into the answer others are desperately waiting for. And sometimes, the greatest courage is found not in speaking loudly, but in knowing when silence must end. There are parts of ourselves we try to bury, roles we once lived, identities we once carried, and experiences that carve deep marks we would rather not revisit. Claire had done just that. She boarded the flight as just another passenger, hood pulled close, content to blend into the ordinary rhythm of travel. But identity, especially one forged in fire and responsibility, does not disappear. It waits, quietly, until a moment arrives when hiding is no longer possible. For Claire, that moment came when the cockpit needed a pilot, not a passenger. Her hidden identity, carefully locked away, returned not with fanfare but with necessity. She had sworn to leave behind the weight of her Air Force past. The memories of missions, of comrades lost, of skies that tested her endurance. Yet in the glow of cockpit instruments, in the firm grip on the controls, those years came alive again. She was no longer the anonymous traveler in row 12. She was Captain Claire Donovan, Air Force pilot, the woman who had faced storms, fire, and decisions where hesitation meant disaster. The return of a hidden identity is never simple. It carries both strength and scars. Claire's composure in the cockpit was not just skill. It was the result of years that had cost her dearly, years that had left wounds invisible to the passengers who now whispered her name in awe. To them, her past meant reassurance, but for her, it was a collision of who she once was with who she tried to be. Every switch flipped, every steady call to air traffic control reminded her that the pilot within her was never truly gone. In that transformation, passengers saw hope, the captain felt relief, and Claire rediscovered the truth she had long avoided: some identities are not meant to vanish. They are too deeply a part of who we are, too interwoven with our skills, instincts, and purpose. The return of her hidden identity did not feel like a choice. It felt like destiny pulling her back to where she was most needed. reminding her that her past was not a burden but a gift in the right moment. Ultimately, Claire's hidden identity returned not to haunt her, but to save others. What she had tried to bury became the very thing that preserved lives, restored order, and reignited her own sense of worth. The return of a hidden identity teaches us that what we try to forget often holds the power to redefine us, not as prisoners of our past, but as guardians of the present. For Claire, the skies reclaimed her, and in doing so, reminded her of who she truly was. There are moments in life when we can no longer remain hidden. Claire Donovan sat in row 12 with every intention of staying invisible, wrapped in her own silence, carrying the weight of memories she thought she had left behind. But when the announcement pierced the cabin, when the call for a pilot shattered the illusion of safety, her world shifted. In that instant, the choice was before her: remain unseen or rise into the responsibility she had once tried to escape. And with that choice came a weight heavier than anything packed in the overhead bins. Stepping forward is never easy, because it carries with it the weight of expectation. Every eye turns, every breath waits, and every heart clings to the hope that you are the answer. Claire understood that as she rose. The cabin, once filled with chatter, fell into silence. Strangers leaned forward, whispering her name, watching her move down the aisle as though she carried their collective fate. And in truth, she did. Each step reminded her that this was not about her comfort, not about her anonymity. It was about the lives tied to her decision. The weight of stepping forward is not measured only in responsibility. It is measured in courage. It is the courage to embrace the unknown, to walk into a cockpit knowing that failure is unthinkable, to sit in a seat that demands perfection under pressure. Claire did not move with arrogance. She moved with humility, carrying the knowledge that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Her silence had once shielded her, but now her action became a shield for everyone else. Yet with that weight also came transformation. In the span of minutes, she was no longer just a woman in a gray hoodie. She was a pilot, a leader, the steady hand in the storm. The act of stepping forward resurrected a part of her she thought was gone forever. The disciplined, decisive soul shaped by years of service. It reminded her that we can never fully outrun who we are. Sometimes what we leave behind follows us, waiting for the right moment to return, not as a burden, but as a gift. And so, Claire carried the weight of stepping forward not as a curse, but as a calling. What began in silence became a moment of truth, a moment when one person's decision shifted the destiny of many. This is the lesson her story gives us. The weight of stepping forward is heavy, but it is the weight that proves we were built to carry more than we believe. In that aisle, on that night, Claire showed that stepping forward may cost you your silence, but it will give you back your purpose. She did not board the plane to be a savior. She boarded like everyone else, with a ticket, a seat, and a desire to blend into the hum of ordinary travelers. Row 12 was supposed to be her refuge, a place where she could sink into anonymity, away from the weight of her past. Hood pulled close, eyes lowered. Claire Donovan wanted nothing more than to disappear into silence. But life has a way of uncovering hidden strength when it is most needed, and that night, the woman in row 12 became far more than a passenger. A hero is not always loud or decorated with medals. Sometimes, a hero begins in quiet reluctance, hidden beneath layers of hesitation. When the attendant's voice broke the air, "Do you have any flight experience?" Claire could have looked away, let someone else answer, let the moment pass. Instead, she lifted her gaze, met the question head on, and said the words that would change everything. "Yes, I do." It was not shouted, not announced with pride, but spoken with calm certainty. That single admission transformed her from an invisible traveler to the anchor of hope for 200 lives. The passengers around her felt it instantly. Whispers swept through the cabin like electricity. She's a pilot. She's military. Strangers who had barely noticed her before now looked at her with awe, as though she had always been carrying something extraordinary beneath her stillness. Claire did not crave their recognition, but she accepted the new weight their eyes placed upon her. Quiet heroes rarely choose the spotlight, yet when the moment comes, they carry it with grace. What made her heroism profound was not simply her skill, but her willingness. Claire had buried her identity for years, pushed aside the life she once lived, and convinced herself she was finished with the skies. But when the call came, she did not hide behind her past. She let it rise within her. Her silence became action, and her action became reassurance. She reminded everyone, herself most of all, that true heroes are not defined by where they sit, but by what they do when everything is on the line. The quiet hero in row 12 teaches us that greatness is often disguised as ordinary. Heroes don't always stand in front of crowds or wear uniforms in plain sight. Sometimes they sit quietly among us, unnoticed until the moment arrives when their courage is required. Claire Donovan did not choose the storm, but she chose to step into it. And because she did, an entire cabin full of strangers saw the truth, that even in silence, even in the shadows, a hero waits to be revealed.